Have you ever heard silence so deep, it starts speaking back to you? In the heart of an isolated valley, where the wind murmurs secrets and shadows stretch a little too long, Sarah thought she'd found peace. What she discovered instead was a voice, a whisper, that wouldn't let go. Some wells hold water. Others hold something far darker. Welcome to The Whispering Well, a descent into quiet madness, where listening might be your last mistake.
The old farmhouse, isolated and stoic, sat nestled in a valley where the wind always seemed to carry secrets. Sarah, a young woman in her late 20s, had moved there seeking quiet solitude after the clamor of city life had become too much. She craved peace, the kind that only vast, empty spaces could offer. She found it, mostly. The silence was profound, broken only by the chirping of crickets, the rustle of unseen animals, and the constant, mournful sigh of the wind. But there was another sound. A faint, almost imperceptible whispering. It came from the old stone well in the overgrown backyard. The well was ancient, its stones moss-covered and dark, a heavy wooden lid secured by a rusted chain. The previous owner, a reclusive old man who had died mysteriously in his sleep, had warned her about it in a cryptic note left on the kitchen counter: "Do not open the well. Listen, but never answer." Sarah, dismissing it as an old man's eccentricity, had chuckled. His tone was reflective, edged with a quiet dread. "I'd found solace in the quiet hum of the countryside, the vast expanse a balm to my frayed nerves. But a silence too perfect can breed its own kind of sound, a vacuum filled by things that shouldn't be." At first, the whispers were barely there, like the wind playing tricks with the tall grass. Sarah would be tending her small garden, and she'd hear faint, indistinct murmurs, just at the edge of her hearing. She'd dismiss them as imagination. Then, they grew clearer. Not words, not exactly, but a soft, incessant chattering, like many voices speaking at once, breathy, overlapping, and insistent, just beyond comprehension. It was unnerving, but also, strangely, compelling. She'd find herself drawn to the well, standing beside it, trying to decipher the ethereal symphony emanating from its depths. The air around the well always felt colder, even on the hottest days, and carried a faint scent of damp earth and something sweet, sickly sweet, like decaying flowers. One evening, as dusk painted the sky in bruised purples and oranges, Sarah was sitting on her porch, watching the stars begin to prickle the deepening blue. The whispers from the well were unusually distinct tonight. They seemed to coalesce, to form patterns. She could almost make out a rhythm, a cadence, like a mournful, ghostly lullaby. She walked towards the well, drawn by an irresistible curiosity. The heavy lid felt cool under her hand. She pressed her ear against the rough wood. The whispering intensified, a chorus of hushed, urgent voices, surrounding her like mist. And then, a single voice rose above the rest, clear and sharp, a child's voice, soft and trembling with sorrow. "Help me." Sarah gasped, recoiling. Her heart hammered in her chest. It was so clear. Too clear. For a moment, she questioned her sanity. Was the solitude finally getting to her? She spent a restless night, haunted by the child's plea. The next morning, she tried to rationalize it away. Wind. An old house settling. The mind playing tricks. But the voice persisted, always from the well, always pleading. As the days turned into nights, the pleas grew more desperate. "Help me," the child's voice would cry, tinged with helplessness and raw fear, sometimes followed by a soft, shuddering sob. Other voices joined in, faint, despairing, echo like murmurs, "Let us out. So cold. So dark." Sarah found herself losing sleep, her skin crawling. The old man's note haunted her: listen, but never answer. But how could she not answer a child in distress? A growing conviction settled in her mind: there was someone down there. Trapped. One moonless night, the cries from the well reached a fever pitch. The child's voice, now strained and frantic, pierced the night air. "Please. It hurts. Please, help me." Sarah couldn't take it anymore. Her empathy, overriding her fear, propelled her forward. She grabbed a lantern and a rusty crowbar from the shed. Her hands trembled as she approached the well. The air around it was frigid, the sickly sweet scent overwhelming. The whispers swirled around her, a maelstrom of sorrow, desperation, and pleading. She stared at the heavy wooden lid, the rusted chain wrapped around it. The old man's warning echoed again, but it was drowned out by the desperate cries: "Mummy. I'm scared." That word, "mummy," solidified her resolve. A child, alone and terrified. She had to help. With a grunt, she jammed the crowbar under the lid. The old wood groaned in protest. The chain, brittle with rust, snapped with a sharp crack. As the lid creaked open, A gust of icy, fetid air rushed out, carrying with it the sickeningly sweet scent and a howling chorus of voices, all tinged with torment. Sarah shone her lantern into the well's depths. It was a black void, deeper than she could have imagined. No ladder, no ropes. Just infinite darkness. The whispers now roared, a cacophony of voices, screaming, pleading, all desperate. She leaned closer, peering into the abyss, her heart pounding. "Hello?" She called out, her voice trembling. "Is anyone there?" Silence. Instant, absolute silence. The whispers ceased. The air became still, devoid of even the faintest breeze. The cold intensified, a suffocating, bone-chilling cold that seemed to drain the warmth from her very being. The tone now cold and foreboding. That was the first mistake. The second was leaning closer. The third, calling out. Then, from the very bottom of the well, from the unimaginable depths of that darkness, a single voice rose. Not the child's. Not soft. But deep, guttural, and impossibly ancient, a voice that seemed to vibrate through her very bones, a sound of immense, terrible hunger. "You," answered. And then, it rose. Not slowly, but with terrifying speed. A massive, shapeless blackness surged from the well, reeking of decay and damp earth, its formless mass swelling to fill the opening. Within its roiling depths, Sarah could see countless pinpricks of light, like eyes, blinking open. And from its core, those whispers, now identifiable as endless, tormented voices, screaming in unison, not for help, but for release, for consumption. Sarah didn't even have time to scream. The blackness surged outwards, enveloping her, pulling her down into the cold, whispering abyss. The last thing she heard was a distinct giggle, childlike, but no longer pitiful, now laced with cruel, triumphant glee. The well lid slammed shut with a thunderous crack, the rusted chain rattling, sealing the darkness within. The whispers from the well resumed, but now, amongst the myriad of tormented voices, a new one was discernible. Her own. Pleading. Screaming.
Not all cries for help are meant to be answered. Sarah came seeking silence. She found it, but not the kind she hoped for. Now, her voice joins the others, echoing from the depths of something ancient and unspeakable. The lid is closed. The chain is fastened. But if you listen closely, you might still hear her, begging you not to listen. The whispering well is no longer silent. The question is, when it calls, will you answer?